teacher who walks hand in hand with students. We are all friends. We are all facing really an unprecedented situation of COVID-19, which separates us through these large distances, and we just get connected digitally, which is a pathetic situation, I feel. And still we are trying to cope up, and still we are trying to understand the realities through which we are passing through. Now here I am presenting for you today. I was thinking as to what should I talk to you, what should be the topic, and I felt that an effort has to be made to understand the prevailing situation of COVID-19 from the perspective of geography. That would be one of the best things to do if we are all trying to cope up with the situation. So while coping up with the situation, we have to also ponder and reflect on it. And for that, it is so good that this discipline of geography, it provides you a perspective which perhaps would carry us further in unfolding its complexities. Now here you can see, I hope everybody is able to see the slides. I have put in, you can tell me that, madam, you have crowded your first slide so much. I feel yes, because this word, spatial dynamics, it is this space which COVID, the virus of corona, has affected for all of us. And we have felt it so much that all of us, we are pushed to our rooms or to our domestic spaces, and we are forced to remain indoors and as much as possible carry on through digital facilities. Thanks to the expansion of the communication system as a whole, one can thank globalization for that, but we have to remember that it is this globalization which I am going to refer to. It is the canvas of the globalization on which the corona virus is dancing and is mutating and is producing new variants, and we are trying to adjust, cope up to the tunes of its dances. Here we find that there are several cities, very well-known places all across the world, which are lying empty during various phases of the lockdowns which we had. Here you can see the VT station. Some of those who are acquainted and familiar with Mumbai, you can see that buffaloes are very smartly crossing the road. And here we are having a huge number of people who are forced to, run away from the cities, or who are thrown out from the cities during the lockdown, which was just announced without any preparation. And you can see the plight of the women who were traveling, who were walking, or the brutality of the police force, and the child who was just sleeping on the bag, and the mother or the woman was carrying the bag. All sorts of horrible stories we have heard, we have experienced, and we can see that corona is really a real challenge for our civilization at present. Here is also a map. We will see more diagrams of that, but one can see that the spread of corona, this is unequal. So once again, in all these pictures or all these, you can see that what is arrested, what is structured is the space of the cities, which you can see, which you can measure, but it is the images, it is also the landscapes which hold that space, and which is not just the Euclidean or the geometrical space with which you can measure with kilometers, but it is the socio-cultural, economic, and political space. So we have to understand the you can say, meaning of the relative space as we are going to deal with COVID-19 and its implications. Just a minute. Now, here I must say that besides COVID, I mean, we are facing these two crises which are global in its character, and that is climate change. Maybe some of the lectures are on that, since we are talking about resilience of the community, and COVID-19, the pandemic. And we find that both these are highly, you can say, characterized by the connotations of the space, which is I'm trying to unfold in our today's discussion. We find that climate change, this was actually it is a well researched in that way a phenomena, and it has been on the agenda. Very recently we had the meet at Glasgow, and the whole agenda, which is institutionalized, the negotiations are going on, and there have been policy decisions, there have been actions, there have been governance from the global to local levels. It is a multiscalar, you can say, situation, just like COVID also is a multiscalar situation. From globe to the local areas, it is having its impact. Now, coming to COVID, we find that just to have the first, you can say, record, that almost in more than 200 countries it is spread, and there has been a death toll of around 52 lakhs or more as on 28th of November of this year. And this has really brought the entire world economy to its knees. It has knocked down the world economy, and there has been a GDP loss of by 3 trillions in the year of 2020. That has been the recorded value. Now, therefore, one has to understand that how do we conceive of these two types of global crisis, of which today we are going to focus on COVID-19, and to say that, well, it is linked with, say, for example, in case of climate change, the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. This has occurred in the industrial and post-industrial phases of capitalist expansion, which is further tuned to the neoliberal agenda. By neoliberal agenda, I mean it is the privatization of the economies. The government sector, the public sectors are pushed to the walls, and in so doing, we find that the worst affected sectors, which all of us perhaps may agree, since we are all from the teaching community, that education, and then today's experience shows us that health sector also, all across the world, and especially in the less developed countries like ours, these were pushed to the wall, so that the public, you can say, health facilities or education facilities are affected the most. And for that reason, we have to, when we are understanding this phenomena, we have to, yes? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes?
If any question is there, you can
Is there
raise
any problem? Because I cannot see you.
सर नेरकर सरांच्या इथनं आवाज येतोय.
Yes, please be unmuted. Please be muted. If you have a question, raise your hand. Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So it is actually the scenario is such that we have to understand this whole thing with a critical perspective. And therefore, I must make a statement that though this is a very unprecedented kind of a phenomena, COVID-19, yet the history of human civilization shows that there have been several such types of pandemics which our civilization has borne with in various phases, dating back to the era of 1345 to 54 before Christ. I mean, I will come to that table soon. Now, if we think that how we can understand this through geography, we have a sub branch called geography of health, which has developed, it has evolved in the 20th century and the coming 21st century as well, and where we find that it focuses on the concept of health and healthcare, not just as understanding the diseases per se, but it considers now it to be a phenomena that needs to be put into the context of manifestation of human culture. Now, what do we mean by that? Here we find that when we talk about health, we refer to body as space on one hand, and we also refer to the body of those, you can say, the viruses or the infectious bodies which attack our body. And therefore, one has to start from micro level to understand the conceptualization of space within our body, and then the contextualize it within the domestic spaces and the public spaces, and how do we develop this cognition. The geography of health deals with these aspects. Now, while dealing with these aspects, we find that organization of healthcare or seeking health is associated with the specificity of place, space, and the entire gamut of various types of phenomena which and the processes which are embodied within this place space, you can say, binary. And therefore, it is in this context that discourse on health and healthcare can be conditioned by the spatiality, not speciality, spatiality of society, its economy and environment. Let us go further to understand what exactly we mean by this. For example, this is the schematic diagram of SARS coronavirus. Its structure is there, and it has the aspects like proteins, then the envelope, the membrane, and then various other structural, you can say, elements of the virus is there. Now, what happens is that when this virus enters, it is the severe acute respiratory syndrome which causes. So we are worried about our noses, we are worried about our throats, and finally we are worried about lungs, and then we are worried about many other organs and the entire body. Many times the body submits to the attack by the virus, no doubt. Now, this virus, as we have noticed, all of you must have also been aware that how it was found in Wuhan, how the entire thing began in Wuhan in southern China, and it was in the bats found in the wet markets of Wuhan, and from there it became, it attacked the human bodies, and it became a virus which could be readily transmissible between humans. So the entire process had a you can say journey from one space to another, the space of the virus from one animal to another human being, and from one human being to another, the transmission took place. So we find that the disease, in that way, many of the epidemic diseases, they are contextualized by distances, direction, flow, and space. Now, we find that the hospitals initially and the international travels, this provided, as it has been noted, the amplifiers that permitted a local outbreak in China. It's very soon spread to South Korea, Japan, and even further to United States of America, Italy, UK, Germany, France, and so on. So here I talk about the micro level understanding of space, about which geography of health has been referring to. Now, there was initially development of a germ theory, and we find that our human body was submitted to the institutionalized gaze of the medical practitioners. You can understand this term probably. Foucault has written this particular term. He has mentioned that it is the institutionalized gaze which decides that what kind of virus it is, what will be its effect, what kind of medicines will be there available, which are not available, whether the vaccines are there, or what will be the impact on which of the organs. All this knowledge and the associated transmission of that knowledge through the institutions of medical, medical institutions, similarly the governing institutions, all this occurs when such types of epidemics are there. So that was being discussed under the context or the framework of health geography, geography of health,